Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about the topic of mom butt. This is a phenomenon that happens, and I think a lot of moms notice that this starts to happen in their body, is that their butt tends to get a little flatter, maybe a little bit saggier, and sometimes it even creates like this triangle shape. And so in my experience working with moms, especially postpartum moms, is that the glutes become weak. Typically this will happen during pregnancy, but it can also happen prior to or after pregnancy. And so our glutes are a hip extensor muscle, but because of where they are in the body, they can compensate for the low back or the hamstrings. And they work with the abdominals to stabilize the pelvis. Now, that being said, if you are having a hard time using your lower abdominals, let's say you had a C-section or you were actively pregnant and you just didn't have the ability to engage those muscles because of your belly, or a lot of other reasons, maybe you just never really learned how to use those muscles, then you weren't able to maybe access those lower abdominals to stabilize your pelvis, and then you were really relying on your glutes. So that kind of keeps your pelvis in this tuck, this posterior pelvic tilt, and then it doesn't let you use your muscles it doesn't let you use your glutes for hip extension, because you're kind of using them for stabilization and your muscles can't really do both at the same time. So this creates this shortened position over time, and that leads to weakness in that area. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite glute exercises, and we'll start from simple and work our way up to a little bit more advanced. So the first exercise that I like to show my clients is going to be on the belly. So we're going to lay face down. You can do this on your floor or your bed. It really is just a preference. If it's uncomfortable to lay on your stomach, you can always place a pillow to kind of support your lumbar curve a little bit. And then depending on the position of or the comfort in your neck, you can either bring your head down on your arms, or you can turn your head to the side. So I'll turn my head to the side for this exercise. And we're going to start here, feet about hip width apart. And as we exhale, we're going to practice squeezing the glutes together. I like to say, if you are imagining that you're pinching a penny between your butt cheeks, and then exhale to relax. And as you do this, you may or may not feel your pelvic floor engage. That's normal. Sometimes it can be helpful to literally put your hand on your butt to see if you feel that engagement. Sometimes one will engage more or less than the other. Now, the thing you might notice is your abdominals might engage as well. Again, that's normal, but we want to see if we can keep the rest of the legs nice and relaxed. So we don't want to get a lot of inner thigh activation or hamstring activation. And if that's hard for you, then you can bring your knees wide and heels together and try it to squeeze, inhaling to relax. This position makes it a little bit harder to use the inner thighs and the hamstrings, So you might be able to feel the glutes engage a little bit more. But also, this might make it harder because you might realize, oh, I've been compensating using a different muscle. From there, we're going to work on prone hip extension. So you can keep your head in the same position. This time, we're really going to focus on one leg at a time. We're going to keep the knee straight, and we're going to see if we can lift the leg off the mat or off your bed using the glutes. A lot of times, we end up overusing the hamstring. So really feel the glute engagement, squeeze before you lift, and then relax. Abdominals are working here just to stabilize the pelvis. A lot of times if you lift too high, you're going to get, it's going to look like you're getting higher, but you're really getting lumbar extension. And that's not really what we're targeting here. So we really want to make sure we're focusing the glute. And then when you relax, make sure you're relaxing the glute. That way you can contract it effectively on the next repetition. And you can try it on the other side. There typically is a difference on one side versus the other in terms of either being able to activate the glute muscle or releasing that muscle completely. So if those feel okay, then we're going to work on a bridge. So we'll lay down flat on our backs, knees bent, feet about hip width apart, hands down by your sides. And now with this exercise, because there are a couple different ways to do a bridge, if we're working specifically on glute strength, then the height of the bridge doesn't necessarily matter, but what does matter is making sure that you're using the glutes in addition to the hamstrings. So we're really gonna think about pressing through the heels, squeezing the glutes, and then beginning to lift the hips only as far as you can go without starting to kind of curve in the low back. So as soon as you feel like you're starting to get movement in your back, you're slowly just gonna lower all the way back down, and then make sure that you're relaxing your glutes. So squeeze, lift, release down, and relax. Now, another little trick I like to teach my clients is when you're up in the bridge, sometimes people tell me it feels like they're using their quads or the tops of their thighs. So what you might be doing here is kind of pressing the heels away. You might also start to notice your torso moving away from your heels. That's a good sign that you're doing this. So if you notice that that's happening, think about pressing through the heels and pulling your shoulders towards the heels. So that's going to engage the hamstrings instead of the quads. So the hamstrings are definitely working with this exercise. It's just whether or not your glutes are helping. So we want to make sure that you're using both your glutes and your hamstrings. The last exercise that I'm going to go over is a deadlift. This is really a Romanian deadlift. So we're going to work on standing with the feet about hip width apart. I have another video where I go over how to do this with a chair. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to show you without the chair. So we're going to bring our hands to our hips. You can also let your arms kind of just angle, feet hip width apart, a slight bend in the knees, and then we're going to try to keep the weight in the front of the feet without lifting the heels as we bring the chest forward. So my spine is moving in a nice neutral position here, and I'm moving from my hip joint. My hamstrings are working hard here. They're lengthening to control the descent of my torso. And then let's say this is as far as I can go. Then I'm slowly gonna engage the glutes to bring myself back up. So there's no movement happening in the spine here. It's all coming from the hip joint, and my abdominals are stabilizing my spine. My glutes and my hamstrings are really working hard on the way up and on the way down. So try those. The key is working on lower abdominal strength, stabilize the spine. That way you have more access to your glutes for other movements and activities.